Welcome to the Arclight Battery, your power source for all things Warcraft Rumble related. In today's video, we have the next episode of our Arclight Rumblings podcast, and as always, I'm joined by Blue Max. How's it going, Blue Max?
Doing well, Minnie. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. Excited for season
Recovering.
4.
That I am. That I am. And I was going to ask, how are you? How are you handling the time change?
Oh, I've been dragging since it's changed. It's awful, but we'll get back to it. It's fine as long as we have more daylight in the day, right?
That is very true.
So, on today's episode, as always, it's going to be split into two halves, but my half, we're going to talk about the Witch Doctor and the state of PvP, and then on Blue Max's half, we're going to talk about PvE events that they teased in the Season 4 launch trailer. We're also going to talk about a bunch of the patch notes, like the changes they've made to daily rewards and catch-up mechanics, so we'll be diving deep into that on his channel, so make sure to check that out. But, for right now, let's go ahead and dive into the Witch Doctor. He is a 2 gold cost horde unit that is ranged, that has a kind of channel attack, just like Charlga does. It does a ticking amount of damage, like, I don't even remember what the base is. It's like 18 every second, I believe. But when he kills something that he's channeling on, it explodes and deals a large AoE that deals a decent amount of damage. So he's very good at clearing squads, as you can see on the screen. He's got 3 talents. He's got Alchemist, where he periodically drops a potion, granting Bloodlust to the first ally who touches it. I believe the Bloodlust only lasts for 10 seconds, and you can kind of think of it like a Griffin Rider level up potion, because it just kind of stays there, and the first thing to touch it picks it up. His next talent is Spirit Ward. On kill, grants a shield to nearby allies, absorbing the next hit against them. Pretty decent. I don't know how good it is, but we'll discuss that here in a minute. And then Amplify Curse. Enemies killed by the curse explosion also explode. This one probably has a lot of use, maybe good at killing whelp eggs and the whelps. We'll have to see when that interaction comes back into play. Max, what are your initial thoughts on the Witch Doctor?
My initial thoughts are pretty limited. And the reason why is you and I are both at the stage of the game where PvP is pretty much the only thing we do. And I feel like Witch Doctor is going to really come into his element when the Bounty Hunt mod is replaced, and we see skeletons and whelp eggs, and maybe harpies, but definitely skeletons and whelp eggs. When we see them come into play more, that's when I think we're going to see Witch Doctor played a lot more heavily. So I've encountered him a handful of times, and he's obviously I feel like he's very strong in defense, but he's not as good in offense because he has a slower movement speed, so he tends to lag behind when you're on offensive pushes. That's my take.
Okay. So my take is I played with him a bunch the first day he was released. I think I played for 4-ish hours.
Wow.
Streaming, and I experimented with him. He's probably I'm not saying that I played him and I know that he's bad. I'm saying that from my experience, I did not enjoy him as much as I thought he did. Here are some issues that I found with him. For one, he's 2 gold, and they're also they're already really good units at that cost range, right? We've got Quillbore, we've got Griffin Rider, we've got Murlocs, we've got Chain Lightning. So, in my opinion, it's hard for him to fit into a deck. Now, most of the time, units have talents that make them better at certain things. And this guy does, but in the case of Murlocs with Safety Bubble that make them survive Deep Breath, Griffin Rider giving it +3 range to make it trade better into things, he just doesn't have a talent like that makes him useful on his own, which is kind of an issue, because when you start stacking things up in this game, it gives your opponent a really good opportunity to play a Safe Pilot, a Blizzard, a Deep Breath, something like that to gain... Yeah, Polymorph. Something like that to gain a gold advantage without actually mining gold. And I do think he's a good support unit. I just don't think his talents do that much. The Bloodlust Potion is hard to set up because he always drops it behind him. So you really
Mm-hmm.
have to like put him directly behind the unit you want to give it to, or you use him to set it up for later. But if you're doing that, it only lasts for 10 seconds. So unless you're playing a fully stacked Hogger, generally the thing that picks up the Bloodlust Potion, it wears off before it actually gets into combat. So it
Yep.
doesn't seem to be super great. Spirit Ward is
Mm-hmm.
nice, being able to shield your team, but it doesn't really block anything huge. There's a lot of things that are big in the meta that deal AoE, um,
Mm-hmm.
like Safe Pilot, Hogger, or just like small attacks like skeletons or whelp eggs or
Mm-hmm.
bandits, murlocs, things like that, that you don't really get a lot of value from blocking one shot. Um,
Yeah.
so it doesn't seem super great to me either. Like, you're never going to Spirit Ward something and then block your opponent's Safe Pilot or Deep Breath. If you are, I don't think your opponent is very good. It's really easy to just wait out the 5 seconds it takes for the Spirit Ward to disappear and then drop your Safe Pilot. So,
Okay. So like Bloodlust, Spirit Ward also has a timeout.
yes, so the shields do not
Okay.
stack and they last for
Yeah.
5 seconds. And
Okay.
then, last
Yeah.
but not least, we have Amplify Curse, where enemies killed by the Curse explosion also explode. This one, I
Mm-hmm.
think, could see some play. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like the Witch Doctor will probably be a very good defensive tool once Bounty Hunt
Mm-hmm.
goes away, and like you said, Skeletons and Whelp Eggs come back into the meta with Maya. I think he'll be very good at defending bases. He does have a large
Yep.
amount of health, which is really cool for a 2-cost unit. That's one thing
Yes.
that he has working for him. He doesn't die
Mm-hmm.
to a Safe Pilot impact. Now, he will die to the Burn Ticks or the Stealth Shot out of stealth,
Mm-hmm.
but surviving the Safe Pilot crash is really a good place to start. Um, so I think
Yes.
Amplify Curse might be good defensively, but we'll just have to wait and see
Uh-huh.
when that actually happens.
We will, and yes, of course, I agree with you there. I think until Bounty goes away, we're not going to fully know. It's obvious that he's not going to be an S tier mini in every mod and enchant configuration. I think we definitely know that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll
Yeah,
just have to see if there are some niche scenarios, maybe not even niche, but just more routine mods and enchants where he plays well. But Bounty, I don't think is it
yeah, definitely not.
for sure. Yeah,
Um, and that's not to say that he's like a trash unit. I think he's probably fine.
yeah,
It's just, once again, it's hard to take the slot of something like a Griffin Rider or Murlocs or Quillbore,
yeah.
something like that. Um,
Oh, for
and
sure.
that's also not to say that Blizzard has to make something that pushes other things out of the PvP meta every single time they release a unit. Um,
Hmm.
because, I mean, honestly, that would get really expensive really fast. Um,
Hmm.
if every time they release a mini, you have to replace a unit out of your deck, it's not going to be a fun game. But I do think that I think they did pretty well with this one. I think Emperor Thorsan is probably where I like to see the balance of minis going forward. He seems really
Hmm.
good, but not overpowered and not just useless, right? But it might also
Yeah,
be different because he's a leader. He's not taking the slot of a unit in a deck, he's his own deck. So it might be a little
true,
harder to judge.
true. But we had Sylvanus at Global Launch, and I'm sorry, but she's just been meh, with that 6 gold cost and that unreliable ability where she banshees, whatever's right in front of her. So Thaurosan was definitely superior to Sylvanus. But you're definitely spot on there in terms of Thaurosan was not replacing a mini. He's just a new leader to experiment with. Um, I guess my problem with Blizzard not making the new mini particularly strong in PvP is just, of course, so many of us in Diablo gaming, we've been done with the campaign for months. We've been done for the PvE content for a long time. PvP is the only thing we have to do. So it's hard not to get excited about ooh, it's a new mini to play in PvP.
Mm-hmm.
But then you factor in people like us. We've got a lot of level 10s. And so even if Witch Doctor was really good, it's hard to sub out a level 10 mini for a level 8 or level 9.
Mhm.
And be able to objectively say this unit is better. Because
Yeah.
it's going to be stat-wise, it's going to be inferior.
Yeah, and that's kind of going into a big gripe I have about the game is how things aren't
Okay.
balanced in PvP because everyone knows the list of good minis. Everyone knows Griffin Rider's good.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows
Mm-hmm.
Quillbore, Safe Pilot, Murlocs, Prowler,
Mm-hmm.
Dark Iron Miner, Execute, Blizzard. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone knows the good minis. So, because this is a game where your money and your time are very valuable to you, you want to invest your resources into the things that you know are good. The issue
Yes.
is when you force players to do that, then you don't have anybody experimenting with the off meta minis, and you don't really know if they're actually good or not. And it's impossible to test them
Mm-hmm.
because while the minis you have are level 9 and level 10, the minis that you didn't invest into are level 5 and 6 and
Yeah.
7. And
Yeah.
they're never, like, even if they are good, they're never going to be if they're that underleveled, which is kind of unfortunate because there's a lot of units that I would like to play with, like
Mm-hmm.
Stonehoof Tauren or Ogre Mage or Abomination.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not up to snuff, basically. I'd like to be able to test things, but because of the way the XP works currently,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to test every single unit in the game.
Oh. Well, I'm a dreamer, and every idea, but most of my ideas are bad.
Oh,
So one of my bad ideas is I would love to see an enchant where for 6 weeks or whatever the time frame is, if Blizzard changes it in the future, I would love to see everyone above 3K playing the same level minis. Um,
so
and I
like
think that would do. Go ahead.
so like a modifier that squishes everything to level 1.
Yeah, or level 5 or level 10. Make it all level 10. I don't care, and I'm not sure if it really matters. Just everyone playing all the same. And I think that does at least two things for you. One, it permits what you just suggested. It permits everyone to be flexible and play even their underleveled minis. Two, you've got some really solid players, such as Mazizo or um,
Legendary.
Legendary, yeah, yeah. Or even Jacoby, who are strong players, but they're not whales. And so they're only able to get so far up the PvP track before they're just getting slammed. Well, not legendary. He's trashing us, or at least he's trashing me. So they're not really able to experience high level PvP because of that. And I think that would be something that a lot of people would be attracted to. I think a lot of people would go, you know what? I have level 7, level 8s. There's no way I'm going to get above 12K or 13K, but for this season, I'm going to go ahead and push it. I think you'd see a lot more activity.
Oh, I think so too. And I've constantly been not preaching, but I've always been an advocate for suggesting that like leaderboards don't mean anything when
Mm-hmm.
you have to invest a ton of money to be able to climb the
Yeah.
leaderboards. Like we have players that probably are still in platinum that just like well maybe not platinum, maybe somewhere in dark iron that
Mm-hmm.
just are better than probably 99% of the players, but can't actually show that because they don't have the levels on their minis.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
well, I think that is
Yep.
a good segue into our next topic, which is
Okay.
PvP and the state of it. So, right now, we have Dragon Towers, we have Bounty Hunts, and we have a Hero's Resolve. Now, this is going to be a very polarizing conversation, maybe,
Maybe.
because I have been reading in multiple discords, in my guild discord, in the community discord, and other discords on
Mm-hmm.
my YouTube channel. People
Mm-hmm.
do not like Hero's Resolve. They hate it. Um, I actually like Heroes Resolve. Um, but
You and Arthi.
yeah, me and Arthi. So
Yeah.
um, I do recognize that this is probably your least free-to-play friendly modifier, if I had to say. There's some I can't even put my finger on what it is. Maybe you can elaborate on it, Max. But it just seems like if you're starting behind in Heroes Resolve, like if your leader is a level or two lower than your opponent's leader,
Uh-huh.
it's like you're never able to catch up because the games are so reliant on your leader because of what Heroes Resolve does. And if people out there don't actually know what Heroes Resolve does because they don't PvP much, it just says that every time you play your leader, they get an extra level. So leaders like Hogger are really good because not only is he gaining a level every time you play him, but he's also stacking up his passive, which just eventually gets out of control. So
Yes. Yes, it does.
so
Yeah.
well, Max, why don't you give me your opinion on it, actually?
Well, look, without me like pulling out a spreadsheet, I'm not. Let's kind of get into why if your leader is base level 8 and mine is 10, why you're going to get overrun. Generally speaking, the higher those levels go, the more difference there is in 10%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
And so,
it's not 10% of the base of their stats that they gain every level. It's 10%
yeah,
of the last level. So,
yes, yes.
mm-hmm.
So characteristic to that, I had a great match against Economic, who's part of our guild, and my Baron is 10. Well, all of my leaders, 12 of my leaders were at 10, and his Hogger was 8. And early in the match, it was Timber Mall hold. He had me on the ropes, and he had me pushed back to my base, and he was capturing both of the chests. But I just stayed back, played defensively and passively, and polymorphed him a couple times at the base, and just was able to cycle my leader out a few more times to the point to where my Baron was beginning to overpower, and then I just gradually pushed him back
Mm-hmm.
and beat him. And he was a little salty about it. He wasn't rude, but he was annoyed, and frankly, I don't blame him because uh, the the match was determined primarily based upon I had a higher level leader than he does. And so I think that's why a lot of people are frustrated. And look, like I said, I've got 12 of my leaders are level 10. I should be positioned in such a way to love Heroes Resolve, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's just I'm not a really great player, and I just feel like the majority of the games just come down to how quickly can I cycle through my deck to get to another leader and just keep stacking those levels to the point to where nothing matters. The leader just steamrolls everything
Mm-hmm.
other than your opponent's leader. So that's my frustration. That's my beef with it.
Yeah. Okay. And I think those are all very valid points. So why do I like it then? Well, I like it because I think you can play just about any hero you want currently, other than maybe
Mm-hmm.
Sylvanas and Sneed, though Sneed might have other issues other than Leaders Resolve or Heroes Resolve. Um,
Yeah.
and I can't remember a time in the past where Thalnos was playable, and right now he's pretty solid. Um,
Yes, he is.
I feel like Tyrion, Jaina, Maiev, Hogger, Murk-Eye, Charlga, Rind,
Mm-hmm.
Emperor Thorison, Drakasath, Cairn, Grom, Baron, Thanos, all things you could play right now. Um, However, you need the leaders on, or the levels on those leaders to make them
Yes.
actually good. But
Uh-huh.
I do think the meta is very wide. Now, there are some outliers. Um, Tyrion's and Maiev are probably weaker than most. Same with Murk-Eye,
Mm-hmm.
but Murk-Eye and Maev's problems are because of Bounty Hunt and not Heroes Resolve. So when that
I
rotates
agree.
out, I think we'll see some more of them. And then
Yes.
Hogger and Jaina are pretty close to the top. Jaina might be an issue, might be an outlier, but other than those, I think everything is relatively balanced. And I am starting to see the play pattern of, or rather, I'm starting to recognize that the play pattern of cycling to spam your leader isn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily the most fun, but it is only for
Mm-hmm.
6 weeks. So I think that I'm okay with it. Maybe that'll change in another week or two. But I do think there's a nuance and a lot of decision making that goes into cycling to your leader, because if all you're doing is cycling to get to your next leader, eventually your opponent's going to take back control of your gold because you're just spending your gold as fast as possible to play your next leader. So there are
Yeah.
decision points where you're playing slow and denying their gold so that you can take control of the gold yourself, because once you get control of the gold, then you can respond to what they're doing and cycle more into your leaders. And I think that there is some interesting decision points there. But I don't know. I don't mind Heroes Resolve. I don't think it's nearly as bad as what some people say it is. But just my opinion.
Sure. Well, I mean, I miss playing Prowler because I don't feel like I can play Prowler because that's another 1 gold. Because you are trying to conserve
And
your gold very carefully.
So what do your decks look like generally?
Well, I did thoroughly watch the PvP video you put together and released Saturday morning. So I have been playing a lot of Blizzard, um, Polymorph, Quillbore, Murlocs, Griffin, and a few and DIM,
Mm-hmm.
Dark Iron Miner. So I've been playing a lot of that,
Mm-hmm.
and so I guess part of the boredom with Heroes Resolve is simply that I feel like I've got to play basically the same minis and just swap out leader. But that could also be just an evidence of my lack of creativity and the fact that I've turned off that part of my brain and I'm just simply following what other people are doing. So I got to weigh that in with my frustration. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Though, and maybe this is a topic for another podcast, but
Uh-huh.
I don't necessarily think that using the same pool of minis with every deck is a consequence
Mm-hmm.
of Heroes Resolve. I think it's a consequence of miniature balance. Mini balance. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's Heroes Resolve and it feels stale, like, what have the past metas been like? We've always ran Griffin Rider and Safe Pilot and Quillbore and Dark Iron Miner and Murlocs, and there was a time where Execute rotated into the meta and it has kind of
Mm-hmm.
never left. It's still good in a lot of decks. Blizzard and Deep Breath are
Yes.
still good. Prowler's
Uh-huh.
great. The only thing that has really forced us to use different minis
Uh-huh.
is modifiers like Bounty Hunt, where now we don't really run skeletons anymore or whelp eggs.
Right.
But other than those minis, like there's not a whole lot that you play. Um,
Um, I feel like Ghoul has been forced out of the meta with Heroes Resolve because when you get to a level 16, level 15, level 16 Hogger, it just feels like he swipes Ghoul twice and he's just gone.
mhm.
And he's doing an AoE strike, so I would say that's another unit that has temporarily left the meta.
Yeah, especially with Dragon Towers too. But it is just kind of like
Hmm.
the same pool of minis. Like
It is.
it's I would say there's probably at least 50% of the minis that we don't really ever use in PvP. And I don't know that that's a bad thing, because I mean the game is a PVE game first.
Yes.
However, I I mean we don't have raids yet, and we don't have repeatable PVE content. Arclight surges do not
Uh-huh.
count, in my
No.
opinion. Um,
No, they don't.
so I mean maybe there
Hmm.
are minis that have uses there that we don't play in PvP, like A bomb or like Worgen or
Harpies.
chickens, harpies. Harpies are good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that might just be the natural design of the game. I don't think every single PvP mini has to be played in PvP, but it would be
Yeah.
nice to see a little more variety.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, that could definitely be a topic for another day. And I hope that for those of us who are currently playing the game, that we can just kind of, how do I say, hold out. Hold out until more content is released. Don't give up on this game. A lot of us love it. It's an amazing game. It's a wonderful community, and we want to see it succeed.
Absolutely. I've got my
Yeah.
fingers crossed for lots of cool, repeatable PvE content. And that's
Hmm.
a great segue to Max's podcast. So go
Yes,
check
it
out his
is.
podcast. We're going to go talk about that in just a moment. Super excited for that and to share my thoughts and opinions on it. Um,
Yes.
so let's head on over there. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in part 2. Bye, guys.